those of you that don't know me, I'm I'm chair of the planning board. So last time we spent about 2.5 hours going through the document, the zoning ordinance that we put together. And since then we made 4 or 5 changes. There are some copies still here if anybody wants them of just the changes. So that's what we're going to go over this time, is focus on those things. After we get through that, if there's some more discussion about other things, we can do that. But like I said last time, this is about the document. We're not trying to litigate zoning or not. It's about is this document, is there things in there that you don't understand that you need clarification?
I'd like to have this meeting stopped for property noticing. We have lots of notices out there. They don't meet the time frame. There are the examples in there. So
Well, they put it in the paper, it was just Wednesday.
put it in the paper.
We all got here, there was
It was
no
the wrong
meeting.
date, 2 papers, okay? So didn't even post till the 20th. That's not 10 days. You can't count the day of posting, you can't count the day of the public hearing. The website, who knows? You put 6:30, 7, no idea.
It was correct on the planning board page.
It was correct on the planning board thing, that's one place. Where are the other places?
And it was posted here correctly.
One place.
It was posted here on Monday night.
It was, prove that.
We were here. We were in the meeting.
Is Monday night 10 days?
I need to know, yes, barely.
Right, it was Monday night. We were here, we posted it.
I wanna see the time frame of posting it on the website.
Yeah.
Nope, I think
We were
this
here,
should
we
be-
posted it Monday night when we
I
got
think
there.
this
We
meeting,
posted it before we
that's
left.
not enough, and I think this meeting ought to be closed down. And Attorney Inspector Morgan, are you prepared to deal with the possible repercussions?
Well, I think everyone is here. We should have the hearing, and if there are posting issues, we'll deal with them on the
You know
back end.
that's wrong, right? You do know that's wrong.
I don't know that's wrong.
Yes,
Because
yes, you do. Have you read the RSA?
Many. I don't know what you're saying is accurate. So until we can clear that up,
That's your choice, ma'am.
It's
All I
not.
can say is be prepared. I hope you don't have to deal with anything, but that's your choice.
it's actually not my choice. It's the town's choice.
I'd call the meeting if I were you guys.
So when it went into the paper, we knew it did not meet the timeline, but there are other, you read the RSA,
Did
there
you
are
not
other
prove?
criteria.
Did you
Excuse
not
me,
prove?
I did. Can I have these, please? So the newspaper is not the official notice.
I cannot hear you with that.
No sound.
So we knew we could not make the deadline to get it in the paper, so the paper we did not view as the official notice. The notice, if you read the RSA, it needs to be published,
After the chat.
posted, and posted on the website, and that's what we complied with.
If you did not, you posted it in the newspaper incorrectly, yes. Why didn't you post it in a daily paper where you could have corrected it?
We can hear the
Why
meeting
didn't you
now.
post it in a paper that came out on the 18th and not the 20th?
We typically use the Caledonia Record and the Courier and the Forest County.
So the rest of your postings were still incorrect. Time frame was.
Because we changed it to meet the time
You can't keep
posting
changing stuff.
requirement.
People don't know what's going on.
But as long as this meeting was in fact posted on the website and in 2 other places,
What were the 2 other places?
I don't know. I don't
Oh,
live
well,
here. I didn't do
I
it.
need to
I am
know.
saying
Somebody
as long
give
as
me
it's
an
on the
answer.
website and 2 other public places, then we're fine.
Somebody give me an answer.
Transfer station.
It was at the transfer station.
That's only open 2 days a week.
It's still a public place.
That's not adequate.
So we've got 25, 30 people here. We've got another 10 people online. I've been here since 6, so if anybody mistakenly came at 6:30, I certainly would have seen them.
That would have been on Wednesday, right?
No, tonight.
What about when we showed up Wednesday? Nobody was here. That's what was posted Wednesday. We have pictures of us standing here.
Okay.
Nobody was over here and say, oh, look, we made a mistake either.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I think the main thing is,
And to let you know, I will let the Attorney General and the Secretary of State know about this.
so I think the main thing is we have quite a good group of people here, we've got a good group of people online.
It's your choice.
Do you see any reason to? Okay. All right, so for those online, I apologize for the audio delay, but we're moving ahead. So I will share my screen of the changes. Okay, so I've highlighted the changes in yellow, so anything that isn't yellow is exactly what we talked about last time. So the first thing that's been added is the definition for full-time employee, year-round employment as defined by state of New Hampshire. And I'll go back a step to say the changes, there was one error that was corrected, one awkward wording that was changed, and then based on discussion at the last meeting, we've made a couple of edits based on feedback we got from the town, the number of employees, based on discussion with Chris Sear. I don't know if he's here tonight. I talked to him after the meeting, and I had a couple of communications with him after that, and so we edited to match and give a little bit of room for growth on Team O'Neill, since that's an existing business that is part of what we are today as a town. So we'll make sure to support that. This was the awkward wording. Proposed use shall not cause hazard to health, impact to property values, or safety through fire, etc. Home-based businesses, so obviously we had some discussion around that, and so we opened this up quite a bit more. So now it says home-based businesses where customers do not regularly interact with the business on site.
Hey,
So
Carl, we've got, what's the protocol for speaking as far as people make comments as you're talking?
yeah, okay, thanks. So I'll go through the changes first, and then if people have questions, we can pick it up after that.
We can't hear you
Right.
with masks on. We can't
Okay.
clearly hear you.
Okay, sure. I'm happy to take it off if that helps.
And Val, that's the same for you.
I would prefer not to.
Okay,
That's
just
my
speak a
personal
lot
choice.
louder
I
then.
will
Yeah.
happily.
Yep,
speak
if there's
louder.
any lack of clarity, feel free to ask a question. Okay, so home-based businesses where customers do not regularly interact with the business on site. And then this is the small commercial business, so this was 1 to 25, so we corrected the 1 and upped it to 40 based on, as I said, where Team O'Neill is today with a little bit of room. My understanding had been before that we had captured them pretty well, but after just talking with Chris, that was the change we made. So other than that, we've made no other changes to the document that we discussed last time. So, if there are questions about those changes?
Yep.
Yep, sure, go ahead.
Hi Carl, I'm Linda Greenwood, I live on French Road. I really love quilting. I'm going to invest a lot of money into a long arm quilting machine. I'm gonna have people coming to my house to deliver quilts and to pick them up. I'm not sure what the phrase "do not regularly interact with the business on site" means in regard to my plan.
Okay.
Can you elaborate?
Yeah. So, I think the where we're going is, do you have people coming, essentially every day, like, say you're a restaurant, you got people coming in and out all the time, so that's pretty easy and clear to understand.
So is that okay to have a restaurant?
Sure, you can have a restaurant. Just
people.
You can have a restaurant. The question is, you know, where you fall in the grouping of, this is, oh, sorry. Whether this is, something that, according to the zoning ordinance, you can just do without a permit, or whether you need a permit, or whether you need a variance. So, like I said, you can certainly do a restaurant. There's nothing in here that says you can't.
Which of those levels would you have to cut to the zoning board for,
So
if you wanted to have a restaurant?
So restaurant is definitely not in the no zoning group. So then looking at the areas where you need a permit,
Am I looking at appendix A?
yeah, we can go there.
It would be under small commercial businesses allowed by special exception,
Right,
so you'd have to apply for that.
right.
Is my long arm quilting studio in my house gonna be one of that?
So you have, it's just you,
I may eventually have one or two employees
and people are coming to pick up or
and
buy.
Right.
You think it's every day? I mean, I'm doing my best
Hopefully.
here.
Every hour,
Business is
24 hours.
No, but
Be
my
nice if you had
point
a
is,
business
are people
to
coming
pick up.
like on a regular basis, or it's like, hey, on Friday, I'm coming to pick up something that I ordered from you, and that's the only thing you have on Friday? I don't know.
I mean, yeah, one person can be coming to drop off, another person be coming to pick up, you know, but in some days I may have no customers, but other days I might have 7 on and off during my business hours. So is that going to be allowed by special exception?
I think it would just be a regular zoning permit. It
Yeah.
would be a home-based business.
So it's, you're working at your home,
Right.
right? So it's in this home-based business is clearly secondary, so your primary thing is you live there, that's the main thing.
Right.
And then you have a small business on the
Right,
side.
right.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, but with the phrase do not regularly interact with the business on site. Cause
Yeah.
all my interaction will be on site, but it will be limited time-wise.
Mhm.
But there may be, you know, several customers on a busy day.
Yeah, but that certainly seems,
So you would need a zoning permit from the selectmen.
Okay.
The selectman will determine if she has a business or not.
Yes.
Excuse me, Gary Greenwood. You're saying that the board has the right to say, no, you can't have a business?
Are you asking me?
Excuse me?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking the board.
Oh.
Anybody has an answer.
Well, in your zoning ordinance, what is permitted is a home-based business, and as long as you meet the criteria of that home-based business, you would get your zoning permit. That it would be up to the selectmen to decide whether or not you meet those criteria.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes. But there,
Well,
I mean,
that's-
there's not a lot of discretion.
Sounds like a great deal we got going here.
go back to you, Eric, there was a question here somewhere earlier?
Yeah, Carl, how you doing?
Yeah.
So, you said
What's
one
your
of
name?
the fixes was because you had, unclear language in Article 4.1, and so you fixed the wording of it, in the yellow copy there. You see that? 4.1.
Yeah.
You fixed the wording, right? You have exactly the same wording later on, but you didn't fix it.
Okay. Yep.
So, is that the kind of change you're gonna make before you're gonna try to clean this up and actually fix it? Are you talking only about substantive changes? What are you going to fix?
You're not making any changes after tonight. These changes will be reflected in the document you vote on.
That raises, to me, and I apologize for being direct here. We have friends on this planning board. You all act in good faith. You work hard. This is a ridiculous process. You had a full year since the vote to work on this ordinance. There are about 12 substantive pages, putting aside the floodplain ordinance. You could have written 1 page a month. 1 page a month. And put it on your website. so all of us could see it, could see what's wrong with it, could see typos, substantive errors, could make comments. You didn't do it. You decided not to post this website, this ordinance to the public until the last possible minute to meet your June vote timetable. So you waited 11 months. Then you put it up on the website and said, okay, now you've got a little bit of time to look at it. We're going to rush through 2 hearings. As I understand it, and I'll defer to the lawyer, you can't make changes because you've got to post the final version of this for the vote no later than May 2nd or May 3rd. So what you're telling the public here is this is a useless meeting. There's no point of this meeting, because you just said, I ain't going to make any changes. So why are we here? We can raise 25,000 problems with your ordinance. I can give you 100 examples as to why this is unfair to people in Dalton, but you don't care. You're just going to post it anyway. That is a ridiculous, unfair, untransparent, and wrong process.
So, Jim, we've been meeting for a while. We have public meetings twice a month. You know that?
Did you post
right?
the ordinance?
No.
Why
But
not?
Because, in my mind, it's not helpful to post bits and pieces here and there.
If
So-
I wanted to read the ordinance, how would I have read the ordinance 2 months ago?
So you could come to any meeting and see what we are working on.
How would I see
Jim,
it?
you've been on a board, right?
How would I see it? How would I see it? I'm not part of your computer system. How would I see it? Why wouldn't you give it to the public?
In bits and pieces.
Why? Well, first of all, why did it take you 11 months to write 12 pages? I mean, that's another question.
Okay.
Wow, what a dick.
So, Milford, you know Milford, right?
I think so.
Yeah, so there's 189 pages in that ordinance, right? So that's a huge document. And you've referenced that, I think, as a better standard, a better document. And that's a piece for me that is hard, that's unmanageable. You know, there's a staff there, paid staff of a dozen or so in the town now, I think. It's a totally different animal than what we have here. So
Carl, and you've said in public at the first meeting that we should all be happy because a shorter ordinance is a better ordinance. All we got to do is count the pages and compare the page count with
yeah, I
Jefferson
know
and
you don't like
Lancaster,
that. Yeah.
and that's a better ordinance. Let me give you a short ordinance. In Dalton, you can't do anything at all with any of your land without begging a board for an approval. There's a 1-sentence ordinance. Is that a good one? Y'all like that? You think that's a good ordinance? In other words, it's a ridiculous comment. You're defending a process that made no sense by making ridiculous comparisons. Another comment you made, you said that, well, zoning works because nobody's been denied an approval. The only approvals that have come up in Dalton are for building permits. It's like dog licenses. There hasn't been a single variance, a single special exception, but your ordinance says you can't do anything in Dalton without a special exception or a variance. Again, the whole process is ridiculous.
So within the state, how many towns don't have zoning now? 7, 8?
Not very many.
Single digits,
Yeah.
I think. So, as I said before, within the state, everybody around us has zoning. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I'm saying it is. That is a fact. And I also said that the zoning gets voted in, any changes get voted on by all of us, and it can get voted out again, right? So that's, all those options are possible.
Right.
We heard this with wetlands. We're just gonna protect the pond,
Just a
and
second.
where's it gone?
So my point is, all those things can happen. Every other town in the state has zoning except for the 7 or 8, well, us being one that don't have permanent zoning right now. And so they all have those same options too, right? And so if they haven't done away with it, it must work, probably not perfectly, but it must work reasonably well for Milford and Littleton and Lincoln and all the other towns around that have zoning. Eric?
Yes, Eric Pilotte, Simons Road. Are you a native of New Hampshire?
Wasn't born here, no.
No, you know what the motto is for the state of New Hampshire?
Sure.
So why do you want to make a communist state out of a place that says live free or die?
Yeah,
And the second question I have for you, the lawyer said that it's not a good idea for the select board to be on the zoning. But you just said if she wanted to think, she has to go to the board, select board, to get her thing. So what is it? Are they going to run this zoning thing?
Well, there's 2 different processes. certain things are permitted with a zoning permit, that's issued by the selectmen. Certain things are permitted by special exception, that's the zoning board. And anything that's not permitted would require a variance, that's also the zoning board.
So you said last week that there's no law about zoning police. And I was told to ask you, if you don't have anybody moderating what you zone, how do you know it's being done right?
Okay, so there's most towns, not this town, most towns would have a building inspector that would be responsible for enforcing the zoning ordinance or a zoning compliance officer.
Who's paying for it?
You're not big enough to have that, so your select board would be the enforcing authority.
And who pays for this?
Well, they get paid their selectman's salary out of
No
whatever.
permit fees?
No permit fees, no nothing, huh?
I don't know.
You're the lawyer.
I don't, you make your fees. I don't know what the fees are gonna be, if there's going to be any. That's a town by town
That
decision.
does not fund the extra work. You
So
don't
another-
charge for
Okay,
permits.
Robin Pilotte, Simon's Road. Okay, so if you go and you get approved or disapproved for a variance, it states right in the paperwork I've read that you end up going to Superior Court to get it approved, because chances are, I'm sorry, we're gonna get denied, on anything that we do. And the only one that's gonna make money here is going to be the lawyer, because you're gonna have to take her, we're gonna have to, out of our pocket again, pay a lawyer to represent, to get what we want on our property that we already bought,
Pay
pay
taxes.
taxes on. And you wanna now tell me what I can and can't do on that land?
So I just wanna go through that again. So you have a use that you're saying, okay, if we apply for a variance and we don't get it, then what?
Right,
Right.
you go to Superior Court, it says right in all the documents and all the towns, and you went and got all this information.
Now, ask him why the lake,
Yeah, and
Twin
why
Mountain
didn't,
has.
when you went to Twin Mountains, why didn't you add what they have down for their lake?
Because it doesn't represent you, does it?
We didn't look at Twin Mountain as a, I mean, that wasn't
You
a
said
focus.
You said last
time,
week.
you went to Twin, Lancaster,
Jeff-
Jefferson, and Littleton.
Jeff, I don't
Okay,
think I mentioned
Twin Mountain has zoning ordinances for anybody that owns property near water, and what they have to go by, and it states right on there, they have to have all the DAS, paperwork and all that, and they do get checked on. They call it an officer, because you have to go around, you have to check these places. You know, it's not just a walk through property, I've talked to all these towns too.
Yeah, and every town's got a slightly different take on it, and some towns have a lot of staff, some towns have a building inspector, and as Laura was saying, like that varies, that changes how things are done. So there's no plan here to have a building inspector. That's, we talked about the money, that's a big piece, you know, you gotta hire somebody to do that. So I'm gonna get some other questions, got one in the back?
Yes, hi, Ruth Duval, Duval Road. I'm planning to start a farm business, a little bit, grow on my farm stand. I don't mind at all, I'll come get a permit for that, because I may have people coming and going. It's perfectly acceptable, I expected to have to do that, to start a business, you know, I didn't expect to just be able to start something and not get permission from the town, but I was wondering, now across the street from me, 287 Landry Road. Now, do they need a business permit for selling drugs? Because they've got people coming and going all day long, purchasing, I don't know, crack or whatever they're buying. I think we should go after them for a permit as well. Can we look into that, please?
They can afford it, Scott Kleinschrodt, I'm gonna be very respectful. I feel for you folks up there, and I know it takes a lot of courage to be sitting right there right now. I think what I'm hearing is there's political undertones through all this. And I read a 22-page letter by Jim and Sandy Danis, and in that letter they stated you have to be very careful when you're setting up a zoning board or a zoning, somebody who's going to oversee it. It has to be somebody independent. It can't be the select board. Not that the select board would take things out on people. I'm not saying that. But it could be perceived that way. And so So everything I'm kind of hearing today, it's becoming a very political issue. And when you start talking about zoning, you don't want politics in it. You want it to be very independent, very transparent. And it just sounds like there's an awful lot of politics that could be underneath this. And part of it is because of why we're doing this. And I'll get to that a little bit later when I get to my time to speak. Part of it is some individuals in town who have ramped up the rhetoric tremendously. So I feel for you folks. I really do. You're between a rock and a hard place. And I respectfully, and I'm being very respectful tonight, just, I can't support this. And then when I hear that there's no more changes after tonight, why are we here? I kind of had that from the beginning. Though I do see that there were some changes from the last meeting. Minor, but there were some changes, and again, I thank you for that. Especially the 25 to 40 employees. That was kind of one of my biggies. But I think as a whole, this could be a long night, and I hope it doesn't turn into barbs being thrown at each other. We have to be respectful of each other's opinions here.
Well, I appreciate you bringing up the rhetoric point, Scott, and I've been asked by some people to address a few things, and you know, I told my daughter I was coming here tonight, and I said one of the things I'm going to have to do is tell grown-ups to be honest, ethical, and moral to each other, right? I mean, on all sides. My goal is telling the truth as best as I can see it, and I'm not always right, but I'm doing the best I can to be honest. And if you came to any of the meetings, Pam, you sat in on probably more than most have, we don't act much different than I am right now. This is the way the meetings are. Maybe we're slow writers, okay, but we try to honestly consider things, and while there may be politics swirling around, that is not what this table is focused on at all when we're working on these things. And any of you that have sat on these boards understand it is you're trying to thread the needle, and there's all this stuff going on overhead and around, and we have been respectful to each other and to everybody in town through every one of these meetings. And we would have been honestly thrilled if we had 30 people. We generally have 1 or 2 that have showed up online, and so as you know, as a board, we want the feedback from the town, and so we've gone to some effort to get that. We've gotten some, we're getting more now at the end. So it's, I understand some of the frustrations. I also have frustrations that people haven't come to the meetings to be part of the dialogue. It's, you know, people that have experience or have know-how. So we're doing the best we can here.
Carl, this has been a 3-year process, though. It's not been just 1 year. This has been 3 years. And I would agree with you. We should have been having this kind of a meeting 2 years ago. You know, this ordinance should have been put together earlier, so that we had time to weigh in. We had time to make changes if we as a town saw that need.
Yep.
And that's the frustrating part of this. You know, it was just kind of given to us, and now it's kind of like, take it or leave it.
Well, remember, Jim pointed out another concern in there, and I appreciate that, Jim, the detailed reading. So, if zoning is passed, that can go on the ballot for March, right? You know that. We can make a proposal. Milford had 18, no, not 18, maybe 10 this year that went through and were approved. So they go before the town, said, hey, we want to make this change, this change, this change, and the town says yes or no to each one. That's how it works. Yeah, I'll get back to you, Jim.
Evelyn Flynn, Dalton Road. I'm a newbie around here, and one of the reasons that we chose to live in Dalton was because it didn't have any zoning, any restrictions, and all this whatever heavy hand. What started this process to make this possible?
This guy right here.
Right there.
That one.
Right there.
This fellow right here. I proposed a landfill in this town, and these people are saying no. And I'm trying to give everybody $100,000 in the next 30 years,
Yeah,
and
we're gonna
everybody's
have-
saying
we're gonna
no,
have the
except for
biggest dump
them.
in New England.
Before that.
That's what started it. So, do you wanna live in a town with the biggest dump in New
Oh
England?
yeah, and even the
with
drag
everyone
strip
wanting
started it.
It ain't a
coming
dump.
from all
Have you been,
The
have you been
landfill.
over to Bethlehem and even
I'm
looked at it?
secret
Before
code
you-
for
Take
that.
a ride before you run your mouth and look at things, before you start speaking.
It's not a dump.
Nice. Class act.
It's much bigger than a dump.
So, the town, emergency temporary zoning was put before the town, and the town voted to say
For
yes.
what reason?
It was put before the town. That's,
By whom? For
Uh,
what
the-
reason? Like,
the-
somebody came before you and said, we want emergency zoning
it was,
because,
yeah, so
Why?
it wasn't us as a planning board, it came before the town as a petition, thank you. And so the town voted to say, do we want emergency town voting or emergency zoning or not? And the vote was yes. It was close, but the vote was yes. So from there, we as a planning board took that to say, okay, so the town wants zoning as part of the process. Emergency temporary zoning doesn't last forever. And so then we have been working on drafting this ordinance for the town to then put before the town to say, here's what we think fits for Dalton. And we've tried to model around towns in the area. And I don't know if you were at the last discussion or not, but looking at how complex are those ordinances, what do we need as a town? We talked earlier, we're not going to have a paid building inspector, so that changes some things. And trying to keep it as simple as possible for people to be able to understand, if I wanna do this, what, and it's not perfect, but as I said, if there are some clear points, somebody says, I think we could do this, it can get changed. That can get added as a vote in March to say, I wanna add something, I wanna strike something. Those all are possible all the way, as we go forward. Did that help to understand why, how we got to
No.
here?
It
Okay.
doesn't answer her question.
No, you didn't say why the petition was started in the first place.
that gentleman right
So-
over there is the
Yeah,
one that
that
stood
guy
up.
right there. The guy over there with the camera.
He just
He's the guy
Yes,
that
sir.
thank
Me.
So
Right.
as
He
a,
was
as
fitting this
a
zoning.
planning board, we didn't have anything to do with that vote, right? That petition that went forward, the town, not just the people in the room, but everybody else voted and decided we want emergency temporary zoning. So you all might have voted no, that's fine.
How many out of town has voted though? How many out of state has voted?
The vote, to my knowledge, was correctly
We're gonna
run.
find out.
Okay. So, question in the back.
Yeah, I don't have a very good voice, but the old story of how you eat an elephant one bite at a time. How do you take control of the people in a town one bite at a time? Appendix A is the first bite of taking control of not just the people, but what goes on in the town. So you're gonna give it to an elite few people to dictate to the rest of us what we can do with our own land, our own properties. I'm not for that. I'm zero on that.
Okay.
God bless you.
Sorry, let the guy do what he wants with his own property.
Yeah.
Bought and paid
So
for it.
one of the pieces that is in here that we talk about is without zoning, so there's nothing about setbacks. So your neighbor wants to build something right up to the property line, that's okay.
Zoning gives you control of your people.
Exactly.
Do you want to have control?
I don't want to.
Bring in Vladimir over here then. Let him take control. That's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Hi, Crystal Pilotte, French Road. So I just have a few concerns. Number one, if we're gonna do this whole zoning thing and people have to get permits and everything to build a house, and we're not Because honestly, if y'all are gonna tell me what I can and cannot do in my home and on my property, you should be paying my taxes too.
So, Crystal, I think, you certainly have a good point that when you come in and say, all right, here's my plot and here's where I wanna put the house, and the permit gets approved, and you could do something totally different, right?
Absolutely.
So the difference is.
Cause it's just a piece of paper that y'all are approving.
Right, the difference is, for example, if your neighbor isn't happy that you just shoved the house right over against the line.
I don't care about my neighbor.
Well,
Does my neighbor pay my taxes?
That's the problem.
Your neighbor might care though.
Does your neighbor pay your taxes? Well, they probably ought to.
But my neighbor doesn't pay my taxes, is what I am saying.
But they pay their own taxes,
They
right?
pay their own taxes, so let them mine their own piece of land, not my piece of land.
Right, so.
I mean, I go to work 40 hours a week, raise 2 kids.
Yep.
If I wanna have a horse for my daughter, I ain't coming to you people to be like, I wanna get my daughter a horse.
There's
And I
nothing
need
in
a
here about
barn.
that.
Yeah, sure.
You need a bond.
It says no large animals.
It says no large.
It says no large animals.
No.
So I can't even have a cow if I wanna get my own milk, because milk is $6 a freaking gallon and we can go through 3 a week. You know what I'm saying? This is what I am saying, like, it's my property. Dalton has survived so long without zoning, and we are getting it because all the other surrounding towns have zoning. Well, let them. If my friends jump off a damn bridge, I ain't gonna follow them. I'm gonna be like, y'all are idiots, and make my own way. But here, listening to all of this, it just sounds like we're a whole bunch of sheep following the herd, getting zoning because all the other towns around us have it.
Yeah, but that's not the reason why we're doing it. It is a fact that all the towns around us do have it, so.
It doesn't matter if they all have it. Dalton has survived quite nice without it.
It's an old town.
It is a very old town. There is a lot of elderly people who live in this town, who were born in this town.
Yep.
And now we're just coming and you're throwing all of this stuff at them, giving them half information. Like, the newspapers don't even tell them everything that is going on. And they cannot come here. They physically cannot come here to sit in your meetings.
Yeah,
And it's devastating to see this.
Right.
Because they don't know what
He's
they're
an
going to be
engineer and
voting
planner.
for, and this is their right to know what we are voting for, and we don't. If we had the full truth, everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. You said it yourself. You want us to tell the truth, but you don't like hearing it.
Yeah, I would disagree with that. I don't have a problem with the truth. What we're talking about here is, this is the document that we have put together based on the feedback that we've gotten.
But
We
it's
made
not,
some edits.
not everybody's
Yeah,
feedback.
no, I'm sure that's true, and I wish it was everybody. That's our goal. But if people don't come, if people don't respond, if people don't say, hey, my mother, my father can't get here, can you get me a copy? If we don't get that kind of
But if we
communication.
ask for a copy, we still don't get a copy.
Well,
We have asked for these things, and we still do not have them. You know, I'd rather learn something bits and pieces than have it all thrown at me all at once. That's a lot to absorb. You know, you're saying that there's 12 pages. You know, I would rather read a paragraph a week or a month or whatnot, so I can absorb it, research it, learn it, have a valid, good opinion, and not be. So, I mean, I probably wouldn't be so upset if I had taken and had little bits and I could read it and learn it and understand it and ask the questions. Now, I mean, we're all here because we don't know what was going on and we all just got thrown at us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your input.
And I'm sorry that you guys have to take the brunt of this, and it's unfortunate, but, I mean, we're a whole town full of old souls who love the town the way it is, and, you know, honestly, if I wanted zoning, I'd move to Concord or Manchester or Nashua, where they can tell me what color my house is.
But
And
isn't
my
that-
neighbor can have an opinion.
Aren't we here because we love the town the way it is, though? Isn't that really why we're here?
You like the town the way it is.
But we wouldn't wanna change the
Yeah, why you
town.
not change it?
Yeah, we love it
Because
just
they
the
won't
way
keep
it
it.
is. Environmentally,
this lady brought up a good question. Just speak up, please.
Sorry, could you give your name and?
Oh, my name's Eric Moody. I live on Union, 30-year resident.
Thanks.
Okay, so this, I'm sorry, what's your name?
Evelyn Flynn.
Evelyn brought up a really good question. Why are we actually here having this vote again? Like, what started this for me?
Yeah, what
The
started
emergency
it?
temporary zone.
Yeah, what started?
What started that?
No, you do know. It came from a landfill.
It is.
Okay. Now, whether that's good or bad, I'm not
Joint
really for a
venture.
landfill.
That really started it.
Shush, I'm talking. Sorry. It came from that. So, question for the lawyer: does zoning actually stop the landfill or not?
The landfill would not be permitted by the zoning ordinance, it would have to come in and get a variance.
More money for the board.
Are they gonna actually stop it?
No.
Is it gonna actually stop it, or does it like only give us a little bit of dictation on how far they can expand, or like what's the deal?
So to get a variance, and for those of you who got the impression last time we were here that a variance is a gimme, it's not. A variance is not supposed to be an easy thing to get. In order to get a variance, you have to meet 5 statutory criteria. And one of the criteria you have to meet is that there is something unique about your land that makes the zoning ordinance, when applied to it, unfair. And I think what the landfill would be looking for is called a use variance. It would be to permit a use that's not otherwise permitted, and those tend to be harder to get than like dimensional variances, because sometimes you've got a funky shaped lot and you can't meet the frontage or you can't meet the setbacks. So I don't know what the application would say. I don't know what might be unique about this property. I don't know really any of the facts about it, but they would have to meet those 5 statutory criteria. If they did not meet those, the zoning board would deny it. And then there is an appeal process, which begins with a motion for rehearing to the zoning board, followed by an appeal to Superior Court.
So it's unlikely, but no absolute guarantee.
Correct.
There was a question earlier that I wanted to talk about the 2-acre piece. I think somebody had written about that. One thing I'll say is that in a lot of towns that have town water and sewer, they have small lots because you don't need a well and you don't need septic. And anybody who's put those in, you know it's not simple, that the siting. And so that's a piece of the 2-acre zoning, is to help the people who are trying to fit those things in. I want to put my house here, where can I put my well, where can I put the septic? 2 acres gives you the room to play around with that. Not saying you couldn't do it in one, but that's a piece of the puzzle. Jim.
So, Carl, I'd like to apologize if I was too direct in my comments. I'm frustrated by the process. I think that frustration came out. I'm frustrated that I took days to write 22 pages of comments and never heard any dialogue from the planning board discussing those comments. I'm frustrated because Sandy and I have sent 4 emails to the planning board with comments and questions about this ordinance. I'm frustrated because nobody even acknowledged that effort we made to point out things that we thought were wrong with the ordinance. So I'm frustrated, and I also am truthful, which probably is a flaw of mine. So let's talk about truth. You're saying this ordinance must be put to a vote in June. That's not true. You could vote as a planning board tonight, later, not to put this ordinance to a vote. You could listen to what the people have said, say, I need more time to think about it. Gee, I'd like to think about more of the comments that people have made. I'd like to strike a better balance so people can start a quilting business without getting a permit. I'd like to do things better. I'd like to not have typos in my ordinance or definitions that don't make any sense, words that are unclear. I'd like to make it better. You could say, I'm not ready. Here's the truth. The reason why, in my view, you are not going to wait, do a better job, do a careful job, listen to the people, have an update to the master plan. You're not going to do any of that stuff, because really what this ordinance is about, the truth, is the landfill. The only reason why you're rushing to a vote on June 7th, and if you would release your lawyer from privilege, she'd explain it to us, is because you don't want to have a gap between temporary zoning and permanent zoning. So you're sacrificing all of us for your strategy, the select board strategy, to be sure there's no gap in zoning. That's the truth. We're all collateral damage because your strategy is to try to make the landfill get a variance. And again, I could write pages about that. It's an interesting topic. I think you're gonna fail in your effort to force the landfill through this, but that's another story. In any event, you're doing this vote now, not because of us. You're doing it because you want to make the landfill come to you and ask for a permit. So let's tell the truth.
So the last meeting, what we were trying to get is feedback to update, make changes, and we made some based on the feedback that we got. I understand there are plenty of folks in the room that don't want zoning and aren't going to vote for it. That's fine. That's totally fine. Just don't vote for it, right? That's all there is to it.
It's full of mistakes, Carl. Why?
Well,
It's full of mistakes.
that could be. The goal is to get something before the voters that we feel is reasonable. Is it perfect? I doubt it. But it is a best effort that he's going to go before the voters. And if you don't want zoning, you just vote no, right?
We've heard enough. What we're saying has no matter to what you're going to do this morning.
Have a good night, Jim. Thank you.
Hey.
Bye,
Bye.
Sandy.
I have a question, or not really. Tim O'Neill from Whitefield resident, paid plenty of taxes here.
Sure.
I was involved in the master plan for the Whitefield master plan, and it was very difficult, I must say. It takes a long time, and to get people's input, we might have only gotten 20%, which they considered was really good, and we had to do that by getting a lot of input, not just online, because the older people aren't going to fill out the survey online. We did every store we could find. We had giveaways. We were very careful about getting every single body's opinion in town. And so that's why I know a little bit more about that, and it bothers me to hear that you said this is all based on a survey, not the master plan update, but a survey, and most people said they want the town to stay the same, and they didn't care about whether the taxes went up. And I think that's what you said. Now, I just was wondering, people in this room, do you care if your taxes go up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you're basing everything on, like, people don't care about taxes. It sounds a lot like the Forest Lake Commission was involved with making that decision, and I really do believe that, and I think most people do here.
We do.
We do.
100%.
It
Mr.
doesn't
John
sound like what
Yeah.
people want.
Alvarez is one of them.
All 20 of you people. Wow.
I appreciate your comments, Tim. I'll say again, we've been meeting twice a month for a long time, and most of you I've never seen in any of those meetings. And,
Exactly.
So this is a challenge for us. We are honestly trying to do the best. We are honestly trying to get feedback, but if people don't give the feedback, and you mentioned it, it's hard, right, to get the feedback. And so there's the question of like, how far do you go? Should we be knocking on everybody's door? Is that appropriate, or maybe that's too much? That I wouldn't be thrilled about that. So trying to find that right balance of, we do want everybody's opinion. We would love it if people would have come to the meetings along the way and given us some feedback that maybe we wouldn't get through the survey.
3 years.
We did quite a bit of outreach. We sent cards out. We understood, as you said, that not everybody has internet access, and we tried to make that work. There was no plan to just try to rush it through. This was how many people can we get to respond, and what do we get? And I don't know how many of you did the survey. I'm not going to ask everybody, but I read every single one of the survey responses, and I saw the comments that they made about what they want, and that's why I'm saying the overwhelming takeaway from it was keep it the same as it has been. And so, places like Team O'Neill that's been there a while, that's why we made this change based on my conversations with Chris, to say, hey, we've been here a while, this is part of the culture of the town, and we want to make sure that works for Team O'Neill. So we bumped up that number of employees to match where you guys are at, and given some headroom to keep growing. Sure.
Yeah, I was just wondering, now you said that this zoning would kind of fight. Now, didn't Bethlehem have zoning before Casella's went there? And Berlin, I'm pretty sure, had zoning before they went in there.
Yeah.
And they're all in.
Yeah, I don't know.
And Rochester has one. It's a big zoning town, and it's in there.
Yeah.
So I don't think this zoning has anything to do with stopping it. It's just to regulate to the people saying that, as a neighbor, I don't want this done. That's all it does. Because it won't affect those big businesses. They have money enough to fight you people.
Yeah, that may be.
And the only thing is, it takes away my rights.
Takes our rights away as people.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it does.
Yeah, I just want to add one little piece. I used to own property in Oak Bluff, Maine, down on the ocean, down in Washington County. I went to build. I had to get a permit for this, a permit for that, a permit for something else, and it didn't cost me anything to put a for sale sign. I sold the property. If I don't like it, I can sell my property and move the hell out. Pardon me. But that's the way I feel about zoning.
Joe Dumas, Dalton Road. Who is going to enforce this if we get together and say shaking your head? What's the general cost? What's it going to cost the town to fight everybody?
Sure.
So, the enforcement would be done through the selectmen or a code enforcement officer that might be hired. And the process generally is. The process generally is that, we start with a letter from the selectmen saying, you're doing this, it violates the zoning ordinance, please stop or come in and get your permit. And then if that doesn't work, my office will send a similar letter. And then if that doesn't work, there's 2 avenues of enforcement. You can go to district court, where you can get up to 5 days of fines, or you can go to Superior Court, where you can get attorney's fees, fines, and most importantly, an injunction to stop whatever is violating the zoning ordinance.
When you say 5 days of fees, we get charged 5 days of fees just to fight it? If we don't agree with it?
So no, but if we go to district court and the court agrees that you're violating the zoning ordinance, the penalty is up to 5 days of civil penalty.
Okay. Thank you.
Scott?
First of all, again, I'd like to thank you folks for allowing us to weigh in. I think we all probably have a better thing to do on Friday night than come here, but we're here. I think that alone is sending a message, just as it did a week and a half ago. You heard 2 hours of people's concerns. You're probably going to hear another 2 hours tonight, and there's probably more even if we could do it, but we probably are going to run out of time. After watching last week's hearing on YouTube, I unfortunately have more questions than answers. And I think my first question is going to go directly towards town's council. And I think, ma'am, you already answered this, but I'm going to maybe rephrase the question. Will the proposed zoning ordinance prohibit Casella from siting a landfill at the Ingerson Industrial Park?
Well, like I said, it would not be a permitted use under the zoning ordinance. They would have to come in and apply for a variance.
Who sites landfills in the state of New Hampshire, the state or the towns?
Both. The state has a large regulatory structure, but what the Supreme Court has held is that as long as the state hasn't specifically regulated it, the town can regulate things like the location.
So if the state, after all of the DES environmental things have been done, says a landfill can go into the Ingerson Industrial Park, can the town then have some kind of a zoning ordinance that will prohibit that from happening? After the state has said, nope, they've met all the regulations, they met everything that they've been told to meet.
Yes.
So the town can still say, nope, we don't want them.
Yes.
And what will that end up happening?
Well, I'd imagine Casella will appeal that, and there will be a years-long court battle.
And how expensive?
Honestly, it's going to depend on Casella. A plain vanilla zoning appeal costs in the range for the town of $2,000 to $2,500. This is not going to be a plain vanilla zoning appeal.
You're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the lawyer.
I'm not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, but I'm talking tens of thousands of dollars.
My guess is
You get paid
Casella,
an hour, you get paid mileage. It adds up. We're paying you tonight. We paid you last time. We paid you to show up whenever because I'm surprised there isn't a police officer here. but, you know, and it ups our taxes.
Potentially, or
Yeah,
it, or
no,
moves
it will.
segregated
It's not
expansion.
potential.
So I'm gonna continue. My guess is, and I haven't asked, but my guess is Casella has multi-million dollars already invested. They're not gonna walk away. And you're saying, oh no, it won't be $100,000 lawsuit? Much more
From
than
my
that.
office, absolutely not.
Be much more than that. Much more than that. They're not gonna stop. They have done everything they've been asked to do. They started this before this whole
Temporary zoning.
shenanigans even began. They've done everything that they've been asked to do by the state. And they're not gonna stop. They're not gonna just wash their hands and say, oh, 150 people in Dalton decided they don't want this and they're zoning us out. I guess we'll just leave and go somewhere else. They're not gonna do that. And let's be truthful. We know this. Okay, let's be upfront. So without town water and sewer, Carl, this was brought up last week. You know, what's the purpose of this ordinance? The ordinance, we've heard it. We know what it is. But let's make pretend we don't know. Okay, what's the purpose of this ordinance? If it was nothing but stopping Casella. Without town water and sewer, there are many businesses that won't relocate here. We know that. This isn't going to be a business hub. We don't want it to be a business hub. I don't think anybody here wants that. With plus or minus 20 homes built over the last 3 years, there does not seem to be a housing boom in our town. That's not a problem. For 50 years, industry has coexisted with Forest State Park with no issues. That's not an issue. So it all boils down to, what's the issue? It's trying to stop one industry from coming into this town. And that's it, plain and simple. And let's not sugarcoat this. That's what this is all about. And I think everybody in this room knows. This ordinance seems to try and solve a problem that does not exist. That's exactly the way I see it. Now, my second question, Carl, is going to be it goes back to some things that were brought up a week and a half ago. There was a statement made by Karen Locke in regards to the town's master plan. Now, I'm going to ask, which master plan was used to create this proposed ordinance? 2011 or the 2021?
So we started out with the 2011. We did the survey to get feedback, and looking at the two, not much different. So much of the wording is the same, based on the fact that we got essentially the same results from the survey from past. So there was some editing that we updated based on that, but
Is
much of it didn't.
the 2021, is that posted anywhere?
The master plan is not finished. What we did was the survey, the feedback piece that was most relevant to being able to verbalize this.
So since the 2021 master plan is not done, you can't say you used the 2021 master plan to design this, because it's not even completed yet.
Right.
This really is from the 2011, and then the survey, some of the questions and answers that you got from the survey.
Right, which is
last summer.
a big piece of the master plan of what does the town think? And so that was the concept of the survey. So is the master plan written and documented? No, but the majority of the research that's what we did.
Okay, so as I looked at the 2011 master plan, because I had a funny feeling that's the one that was used, because when I look at the whole preamble, that comes right off the master plan.
Much of it, yeah.
Word for word, except for one little clever bullet that was changed, and obviously to keep a landfill from coming in. If, and indeed, the 2011 master plan was used, why wasn't there any mention of the industrial use of property off Route 116? And I quote from the master plan: "Commercial and industrial development may be good for the town in order to diversify the tax base and reduce taxes on homeowners. However, to protect Dalton's character, the town should identify specific limited areas for future commercial or industrial development, so the vast majority of the town remains rural. Industrial uses, for example, factories, plants, quarrying, aggregates businesses, are generally inconsistent with Dalton's rural environment And for that reason, it is the consensus of our community to limit industrial uses to a specific appropriate area of Dalton. The town could define the area accessed off Route 116 in Bethlehem as the industrial land use area. That is right out of the master plan. Why was that not brought up into the zoning ordinance at all? Never once was anything said about zoning or looking at a particular part of town which already is industrial in its use and say, you know what, if we're gonna have industry, it can go to that part of town right there.
So part of the survey, for those of you that took it, was asking a lot of those same kind of questions, like if there was industrial or commercial development on 142 or 135, like, you know, how do you feel about that? Where would you like to see it? And there was no clarity.
But there's
really.
no industrial use on 142 and 135.
It's the question of if, you know, as a town, if people said, you know, really on 135 we want to see a lot of development there, then as a town, like, we should focus on that, right? I mean, that's what the survey responses are saying. We want a restaurant, we want a Dunkin' Donuts, whatever, then that's what we should aim towards. But when we ask the question and we get the survey results back and there was no clarity, that some people said, yes, I want that, some people, yeah, I want to hear, something I want to hear. So there was no consensus around that, and that was a big piece of why we didn't put that in.
And I think this goes to what Mr. O'Neill had said earlier. My suspicion, you had 108 responses. I was one of them.
Good.
I certainly brought up tax relief as one of the needs for the town. My guess is 75 of 108 probably all came from one portion of the town, and it was pretty obvious the way they wanted things left. And so that's the unfortunate thing when you only have about 10% of the town's population, and you're to put something together like this when it's not accurate of the whole town. And I'm not saying you folks did anything wrong with that. I'm not here to say that. But unfortunately, I think that's what happened.
So if you remember when we first were preparing to bring this before the town, we had a discussion. Jim was there, and there was discussion around the master plan to say you as a planning board should have more input from the town. And we thought about it and said, yeah, right, we should. And so we did that activity, and that's where, you know, as we're talking with Tim about, you know, it's challenging to know how far do you go to get that, you know. Somebody shows up at my house, I may not be thrilled about that. You all may not feel the same way. So knocking on doors, maybe that was a thing before. Today, I don't think so much. Internet only, we know that doesn't work. So we're, you know, trying to find that balance of posting it, putting stuff here. There were copies of the survey here, postcards that went out. You know, how far do you go down that road?
I understand that. I just kind of, I'm curious as to why the industrial part of Dalton was in the master plan in 2011, and it doesn't sound like it was even considered to be part of this.
Yeah, it was a piece of writing that as we're getting the survey responses and looking at that and saying, okay, there's not a lot of clarity here. There also is the piece that we've talked about with districts, right? That it's a complicated world.
Well, zoning is a complicated thing, and I think I think the town was offered a bill of goods here and saying, oh, we're just gonna have a 10-page simple residential only zoning ordinance. This will be a breeze. This isn't gonna be too complicated. It's not gonna be too long.
Right.
It can't. You can't have that.
I don't know how many of you can see it. This is Milford, where Jim had been on the board. There are 11 districts in Milford.
Well,
so to me, that's crazy.
I know, but that's kind of muddying. That's muddying. That's muddying.
Bring it to the real thing. We're in Dalton. We're not in Milford.
That's exactly right.
So Milford wants a zoning. You just move to Milford. You got your zoning.
Hang on.
I've got two more things, Jim, and now I'm gonna sit down. The claim is made that this proposed zoning ordinance will not cost us anything. This is wishful thinking, as we have already spent money on this proposal. Money spent for a new master plan, money spent for a review of the proposal by the town's council, money spent for town council to be present at these meetings, money spent for law enforcement to be present for these meetings, and most importantly, future money spent in lawsuit litigation. To say that this is not gonna cost us anything is disingenuous at best. That is not true. It's already cost us money, number one, and the big cost is down the road. When you have a very vague zoning ordinance and people are gonna just start, nope, I wanna do this, oh no, I can't do this because of some politics, I guess I'll go to the lawsuit. Finally, Carl, at the last public hearing, you asked me to volunteer to be part of the committee to help bring industry to our town. I would like to explain to you why I must turn this invitation down. I have witnessed firsthand what happens to an individual, Corey St. Cyr, who refused the marching orders of a specific individual in the current select board. I have been called out on social media by the same individual numerous times because I have a different opinion than him. The same individual went so far as to send a letter to my employer, calling me a traitor to the youth of the North Country, and alluded that I should be fired. He continues to post disparaging images on the Save Forest Lake website to the point where the legislative security detail in the Concord State House has been called in to protect its members from him. I will not put myself nor my family in his crosshairs. As I've said before, the leaders of this town need to be careful of the donkey they hitch their wagon to. Finally, I'm not opposed to zoning ordinance if it's done for the right reason in the right way. Unfortunately, I find this document to be politically motivated and something that could have devastating financial effects far into the future. We continue to lose town services, watch our tax bills rise. If the town of Carroll is successful in leaving the school district, our tax bills are predicted to rise $4.81 per $1,000 of evaluation. We are at a point where we need to encourage a diversified tax base, not ask homeowners to continue to foot the whole bill. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Carl. Question next to you?
Yeah, Carl, I'm Tom Tower, I'm from Whitefield. Appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I applaud you guys for presiding, over this and the work that you guys have done. Just listening from afar and then looking at the last 3 years, I think one of the reasons why emergency zoning actually did pass is because it gave the people of Dalton an opportunity to have a seat at the table. Casella's got, unlimited resources, whether you want a landfill or you don't, and I know it's polarizing. This is an opportunity for the town of Dalton to actually have more leverage in that discussion. If you have zoning, it's gonna make a difference. It's gonna cause, Casella to take more time in the process. And with large corporations, as much resources as they have, one of the things that they don't have is time. So this gives you an opportunity to at least have a seat at the table. Whether you want the landfill or not, I know it's polarizing. Have a better say. Have some leverage. That's all I want to say.
Okay,
Thank you.
appreciate it, Tom. Okay, so we spent plenty of time not talking about the document and talking about everything else. So at this point, if there's any other question about what's in there, we will talk about that. But if it's a discussion about I don't like zoning, then we don't need to continue with that because I understand and I appreciate your opinion. Yeah, Pam?
Thank you. Actually, I do have a question about the zoning. It's the floodplains maps.
Sure.
Are you basing those on current floodplain maps, or are they the old ones that are printed in the 2011?
It's whatever the latest is from USDA.
Do you have
FEMA,
those?
sorry.
I would have to look for them.
But they're not currently posted anywhere?
They are. I just off my head don't have that information.
And do you know how many people are really affected by a flood area?
Not very many, but we do have, this is required by FEMA to have this in here. And we can pull up the maps.
And the RSA's involved, does the average person exactly know what those entail and mean?
Well, the
Are they
FEMA
gonna be
regulations aren't governed by state law, they're governed by federal law. In order to be part of the flood insurance program, you have to have these regulations.
Right, I understand that. I'm sorry, I'm referring back to the rest of the RSA's, which is like 20 plus of that. I don't believe people are getting a chance to really read those and digest those. They're pretty heavy duty. I've been reading them. I don't think that's really fair to the residents, but that's just my opinion.
Okay, thanks, Pam. There's just a comment in the chat. When was the last time a business with more than 5 employees has tried to locate in Dalton? I guess I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if anybody's aware. And the second comment was that as far as the district, if there is if zoning goes through and there is a push to have a business district or 6, whatever, that can be on the ballot in March. So that's all. If zoning passes and you say, I think there should be, put it on the ballot and let's vote on it. That's the way it works. Okay, Crystal, last one.
So a concern of mine is that zoning does pass, and say me and my neighbor are having this tiff because they put up a white fence and I don't want to look at it. So I go to the zoning and starts this huge thing.
Zoning's gonna say we don't care.
Zoning's gonna say we don't care. Yep, but the tiff continues.
Okay.
And having no police in this town, who's to say my neighbor's not gonna lose his shit and break into my house or destroy my house? Or people have been killed over petty things. Like,
Look at Gorham.
petty things. I mean, how am I gonna protect myself or my family? Because my neighbor's losing his shit because I could have said, dude, I hate chickens, and your damn chickens are like all over the place and crapping in my yard or doing this or doing that. You know, it doesn't take much to set somebody off nowadays. It really doesn't. I mean, you can look at somebody the wrong way and you're getting shot. You could pass somebody in a car in a passing zone and road rage starts up. I'm just concerned, like, we're gonna be doing all of this. There's a lot of angry people, and there's a lot of people moving up here that, you know, and they can move up here. If they wanna live up here, let them live up here. You know, that's great. But I'm just concerned being a single mom with 2 kids, and there's no cops here. There's nobody to protect me or my family if my neighbor is pissed at me because I might have said something about something on his property.
Yeah, it's but you know, it's not any different than today or last year, right? I mean, if somebody's gonna do something, I mean, God forbid.
Well, no.
So we've got state police in the town, and we're
like,
hoping that nobody's gonna do that stuff.
I mean, last year it wasn't. My opinion didn't matter about my neighbor's yard, and with zoning, it's gonna matter, and it's, you know, that's where I am concerned.
But it's not about opinion. It's about, is there something in the zoning ordinance that affects that or not?
I live next to a trailer who these people refused to go to the dump. And their dump was their yard. And do you know how many times, like, we couldn't say anything. It was literally the most disgustingest place that you have ever seen in your whole life. Like, you could smell this house from a mile away. And zoning would have been fantastic at that point, you know, because you could have a say about it. But, you know, I simply said that you have kids, I have kids, there's kids around here. You know, if you need help bringing your trash to the dump, I'll help you. They lost it on me. literally lost it on me. And I was very thankful that I was 5 minutes away from the Whitefield PD, who came down because this psychopath was losing his shit because they said his yard stunk. I mean, in nicer terms.
And that was in Dalton.
And it was in Dalton. You know, and that's when we didn't have zoning. But like,
There's nothing in the ordinance
People-
that says that you can complain about that though.
I know, and the things that are in the ordinance are just like, why? Why? Like, I don't want my neighbor to have garbage in their yard. But I'm not, you know, they were having a hard time. And they couldn't afford to go to the dump because it costs money to go to the dump. But I offered to help. And what I am saying is like, and another thing is I drive by a landfill every day to work. And for the longest time, I just thought it was grass. Until somebody said to me, that's a landfill. Cause it don't look like a landfill, don't smell. And when I think of landfill, I'm not gonna lie, I think of Berlin. Okay, that's the first thing when somebody says landfill. Berlin, that stinks, I don't want anything to do with it.
That was so fucking weird.
And it was disgusting, and I was like, I went to Bethlehem, I've seen the landfill from a property in Dalton. Looks like a beautiful hill. And in 100 years, that landfill can be a park or something. Yeah, we sacrifice right now, but I'm also looking at it, there's a town in Vermont who the town can pay for their kids who live in that town to go to college. Just write a check for them to go to college because Casella's is in there. You know, these are the things that the town, their taxes are lower.
So
Yeah,
unfortunately, we can't fix all the ills of humanity. I hear
and we
ya.
can't, but doing stuff for selfish reasons is not acceptable either. And you said that when you got those surveys, a lot of those surveys said that people didn't want change.
We
So
didn't have
why
zoning.
go through with the zoning?
Because the
They don't
ETD
want
was
change.
voted in, and it wasn't by a huge margin, but it was by a majority, and
It
so
was
that.
by
kind-
5 points. I was there at that night.
Yep, I was there
I
too.
voted. And I was also there when it was said that just because we vote zoning in does not mean Casellas cannot come in. It does
Yep,
nothing.
we've talked about that many times.
Right,
There's
and I was there that night, and I listened, and, you know, I am just saying, we're all adults. Why is it so hard for us to sit down at a table with Casellas on the other side and talk these things through?
There's a good point made earlier, Tom, sorry, I got your name, but if the zoning is in place, it's not a guarantee that it never comes in. It is a strong bargaining tool to control the path rather than it just happening. So that's something to consider too.
Right, but like, what I'm saying is, back in the day, people would sit down and talk about this kind of stuff. They would have conversations. They would hash things out in an adult manner. But we haven't even given Casellas a chance to come in here and talk.
They haven't applied for anything.
I'm not saying apply. I am saying let them come in here and talk and tell the people what they will do for this town. And you know what the town
And
has
what
to
the town
sacrifice
Okay.
to make that come in.
I had another question over here. Thanks, Kristen.
Thank you. Wayne Sweeney from Harriman Road. I'm not understanding something. I think the gentleman that was standing here before was asking about the landfill question and whether this would prevent it. Your answer wasn't that it would or wouldn't prevent it. Your answer was simply that they would have to apply for a variance. The gentleman from Whitefield said, pass zoning and get some bargaining power.
Right.
I don't understand the mechanisms, because if they come in and ask for a variance and zoning already doesn't allow it, does that then trigger necessarily that this town has to fight it,
Mm-hmm.
and pay for that fight?
Yeah, that's one.
Yeah.
Yes.
So who decides that?
The
Is
selectmen
it this
decide
group
that.
up here?
Yeah, the selectmen would decide.
Selectmen.
So a small group of people decide whether or not we're fighting, I believe, a $4 billion
And that is
corporation.
a small group of people you've elected to be your select people, and certainly you could elect different people, and it's a zoning ordinance that the town by a majority vote has voted in. It's not something that they have imposed upon
They're
you.
people that were
Okay.
selected in that
Excuse me.
are not usually what we want.
So what is the mechanism?
The
It's-
variance?
Right, it's not allowed in zoning.
Yes.
They have to apply for the variance.
Yes.
It's disallowed.
Yes.
They're still proceeding with their path, as they have said, which is outlined by the state.
They would appeal to court, they would still have to appeal the variance to court, and it would be up to the town whether or not to defend that.
Who?
The select
Who
people.
decides, okay, the selectmen, and to what dollar amount?
They control the budget, they can move money around in the budget.
100, 200, 500, a million?
They can't, overspend the bottom line of the budget, but they can move things around.
So they could deny services over a year to fight the state. So, I don't wanna put you on the spot, but how did you see the mechanism of how it gives us some bargaining power? Not necessarily, I don't think you necessarily said regarding the outcome.
Right.
I think you were implying
Correct. Whether you're
sort of the
supported or you
path
don't.
and what we get out of it potentially.
Up to this point in time, the way I understand it is Casella hasn't even approached the town of Dalton, right? They have.
They have.
But
They
they
said
have.
that
Has the select board received any formal notification?
They
of
won't
it?
talk to them.
So
Okay.
back 3 years ago, we received a draft host community agreement.
Right.
But at that point, we had zoning and they have not submitted a zoning application.
Correct.
And it was still early in the DES process, so it did not make sense from the select board's position to expend legal, fees to negotiate that agreement, which would need a lot of negotiation.
Right.
And that is
So, and that's what I'm referring to is the negotiation. So I mean, if Casella comes in, and I'm not them, I can't speak for them. They've got unlimited resources. They could sit at a table and meet with your elected officials to talk over what is in the best interest of the town.
So couldn't they also say, well, your zoning's here, we decided that you have zoning in the town, we decide not to give the town any money.
We'll just
You'll
pay
just get
our
what you taxes and you're gonna live with it.
They could,
And they
okay? They could, but here's the thing. They're trying to move very, very quickly, and I'm not gonna get into the nuances. of
They've been
what's-
there for many years doing this.
I understand, but they've got a place that's gonna close relatively soon, and they have no place else to go. So the clock is ticking. They need to move quickly. That's all I'm gonna say. If you got a bargaining chip, you'll have an opportunity to have a conversation. If you don't, and that clock keeps ticking, then that is gonna hurt them in a big way. I am not them, I'm
But if
just
they
telling
go
you.
to court and fight, they're gonna say, you know what, the town doesn't really want the money, they only want the money so they can keep filing lawsuits.
And they have the money to go to court, but what they don't have is time. They go to court, it's gonna be time and
It didn't
years
stop
and
them in
everything else.
Bethlehem?
It didn't.
No.
But Bethlehem was open all that time. Guess what?
No.
2026, it ain't open. Okay.
Because they couldn't file an extension.
From a very good source that there was
Okay.
a document signed by Eric Pilotte when he was a selectman
Okay.
that said that Dalton is not going
Crystal.
to be another garbage dumping ground, and that's why they voted that we needed to go to zoning.
Okay.
From a document that my grandfather signed when he was a selectman.
But there's a problem. Back when he was a selectman, we didn't have landfills, we burned our garbage.
We've got one more question, one more comment, and then we're gonna wrap it for the night.
I would
Okay.
like to remind people that this all started with some people around the pond over there when they said Casellas is considering putting a landfill in. There's federal and state requirements for any landfill. There's not going to be a runoff into the lake, but there's a few people from around the lake that got all hot and bothered and decided we need zoning so we can stop Casellas. Well, they're not gonna stop Casellas. They're gonna put zoning in, and Vladimir is gonna be running the show.
Okay.
I'm sorry. That's the way it is.
No, I appreciate your input. All right, so we've been here an hour and a half. I think we've been through the 4 or 5 changes we've made. Everybody else has had a lot of time to have their say, so we're gonna wrap the meeting now. Appreciate everybody coming out for their Friday night. Thanks for being here.
Can I just ask if
Thank you.
we don't vote on it in next month, or we vote on it and it gets denied, what happens then? Do we have to go through? Because I think there was a time limit.
How you doing?
So we're gonna vote in June.
And if it doesn't go through or goes through, if it doesn't go through, what happens then? Is it all over and
We don't
done?
have zoning.
She's saying, yeah.
If it doesn't
And
go
you're
through,
saying
you
no.
don't have zoning.
But, I mean, that means we don't have to go through this crap again next March and re-enter it.
Somebody could do a warrant article in here.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone for coming.